One of the things that you'll see with web analytics, and you can see the definition up on the screen, right? So the analysis of qualitative and quantitative data from your website to competition to drive continual improvement of the online experience that your customers and potential customers have, which translates into your desired outcome, both online and offline. And that's key, online and offline, because again, tying back into the business strategy, it's not just in a microcosm here. Web analytics has to tie into all of these other things. And so when we think about something called clickstream data, like how are people clicking through? So think about a path, right? First they went to point A, then they went to point B, then they went to point C. That's a very simplistic version of clickstream data, but it's still clickstream data. So one of the problems with that, or one of the limits of clickstream data, is because we have so little actionable insight. So great, so the person went to A and then to B and then to C, so what? Is that good? Is that bad? What products did they do or buy? What did they do on these pages? What about the time spent? Does that mean anything to us? And so you could tell me, okay, well, they spent 5 minutes on each page on average. Well, is that good or bad? Because there's no comparison. So go back to some of the information we talked about, right? It has to be within context, and it has to be able to be tied back to a key performance indicator. All right, so when we look at this, it's not just the why, but also the key questions. Again, what sources did they come from? What keywords or campaigns produced the clicks? Why did this happen? And what about that? And why not something? And so all of this has to come back to these key questions in order for us to make good decisions about our web presence and online marketing. So we look at kind of 5 different variables here. We look at the clickstream answers, right? So the clickstream answer is the what. And so clickstream is the, again, A to B to C to D, right? What happened? Then we get into what we call multiple outcomes analysis, and this answers the how much. Okay, so well, how much did they do? How long were they on the site? How much did they do something? Experimenting and testing is the why. So why, why did they do this and not that? So again, experimentation is, well, I think that if we moved the buy now button from the left to the right, that we would have more or a higher likelihood of converting. And so they do that, and then we can say, well, why? Well, we can go back to the customer. We can actually do usability testing. We can actually sit down with our customers and ask them, why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? Also tied in here, and I put it kind of as a 4th bullet point, but it really fits under experimentation and testing. And you hear me refer to this as qualitative analysis, qualitative being non-numbers. This really ties into the voice of the customer as well, right? So we hear that coming through in experimentation and testing. It used to be what we'd call flat web, right? So we'd put a website up, it was kind of like a brochure that was online, and we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't know if the customer was actually on there until, all of a sudden all these sales would show up, and we said, oh, well, that worked. Well, we don't really know what worked, but something there worked. Well, now with experimentation and testing, I can have 3 different versions of my website running all at the same time, run a direct mail campaign with a customized URL. They go to, different people go to different websites and see which one produces better or performs better. The customer is allowed to speak to me. And like I said before, we can literally sit down in a focus group type of a setting with a customer and watch them go through the website and ask them questions about why they did that. Why didn't they click there? Why did they click somewhere else? The last point in web analytics that's key is competitive intelligence. Now, I'm probably preaching to some choirs out there because I think some of you guys are in the BCI program here at the university. But in competitive intelligence, this really answers the what else. What else is out there? Maybe the what are our competitors doing, but also what other tools are out there that we can be using and to analyze ourselves better and to become better. So breaking some of these down here, the what. So we talked about clickstream data, and it's pretty straightforward, right? So if you have any kind of web analytics solution, you're going to have clickstream data. This is like the collecting, storing, processing, and analyzing your website's click level data. So click level data is how many times people click, where they clicked, what they clicked, and I guess how fast they clicked. You can measure all of those things. That's clickstream analysis. And so it's it's really it's foundational data. So if you think about building your house, you can't just all of a sudden, start putting up siding. You have to have this foundation that holds everything together. So Clickstream data, there's a lot of articles about Clickstream is dead. Clickstream can't be dead, because without Clickstream, you really don't have anywhere to go. And so Clickstream is really the foundational component of analytics. It helps you measure pages and campaigns, and helps you look at and analyze all kinds of site behavior, like visits and visitors and time on site and page views and bounce rate and sources. But that's all it does, is it gives you a number, and without any kind of comparison, you're left frantically, driving yourself crazy over a bounce rate, and you don't know whether the bounce rate's good or not. And again, bounce rates, when somebody hits your site, like lands on your site and then jumps right back off without going any further. And so, some people said, oh my gosh, we have a bounce rate of 54%. Maybe for your industry, 54% is really good, but I don't know. I don't know that information because I don't know your industry. We have 10,000 page views. Well, compared to what? Compared to your competitor? Compared to yourself? Compared to last week, last year, this month? So again, just using Clickstream data doesn't work, because you have to have comparative data, and you have to be able to analyze the data and make sense of it. So the how much goes into the outcomes, right? So the website tries to do three main outcomes: increase revenue, reduce cost, and improve customer satisfaction. So instead of just saying, this happened, Clickstream, right? You're going to ask, well, how much did it happen, and how did it impact us? So, how much did we increase revenue? So we did this, and then increase revenue by X. We did this, and it reduced the cost. And I showed you how to do that with the table earlier on. Then we get into the why. A lot of times, so why do websites suck? And actually, there is a website, if you want to play around in your board, go to websitesthatsuck.com, because they're pretty interesting. And you will actually hear some of the terminology that we talk about in this class come through on that website. There's a lot of really smart people that talk about why websites are so bad. And one of the authors of one of your textbooks talks about that they believe that most websites suck because of HIPPOs. And so I put up there, avoid the HIPPOs. And HIPPOs is an acronym that stands for the highest paid person's opinion. Guys, again, here's kind of like point number 2 of the things that if you take nothing else away from this class, this is one of the things that you want to pay attention to. This exists, these HIPPOs exist in almost all business decisions that you're going to experience. And so what happens is, you look at this and you analyze it, and you have data in front of you, and then the highest paid person comes into the room, and their opinion is said, and it doesn't matter how logical you are. Now, and I say avoid the HIPPOs, doesn't mean you can avoid the CEO, but instead of launching a site with one idea, which is the HIPPOs idea, you can run experiments live on your site. This is what's so cool, because never in any other marketing style can you really do this, right? So I can't put up 3 different billboards. I mean, I can, but it becomes costly and really ineffective and confusing. But on the web, I can. And what's interesting is I can run this in a microcosm, and because people are so used to what's called the fluid web, meaning things change so frequently, it's not a distraction to the consumer. So I can run a test on the HIPPOs idea and my idea and maybe another idea, and then we can in real time show what's performing better. And that usually it's hard to argue with. And so a lot of times if the HIPPO is wrong, which sometimes happens, maybe more frequently than not, the HIPPO then is shown, okay, in real time, hey, listen, here's your return on investment. Here's my return on investment, or here's the third site's return on investment. I think we really need to go with these other sites. And so it allows us to have really interesting conversations around logical data. The other cool thing with this type of experimentation and testing, and this is a hard concept to kind of get your mind around. Theoretically, it's not, but in real life it is. But the whole goal of the website and the whole goal of analytics and experimentation and testing is so that you fail faster. Guys, you're going to put content up on the website and it's not going to perform. You're going to put websites up and they're not going to perform. And so you need this experimentation and testing so that you can fail faster. In your free time, Google the Marshmallow Challenge and go ahead and just read through the data and the information there. What they found found, the summation of it, is that kindergartners are willing to take more risk than CEOs. And so in this Marshmallow Challenge, each group is given a wide assortment of different things to build a tower. And at the very end, one of the rules is that at the end of it, you have to take this marshmallow and put it on top of the tower. And a lot of us are fooled into thinking this marshmallow is light and fluffy, right? Marshmallows are actually quite heavy. They're dense, they're made of sugar, and they're compounded. And so what happens, or compacted, and what happens is the CEOs and the engineers and the NASA engineers sit there and they think really hard about how they're going to build it, and they draw out sketches and schematics, and then in the time, in the 5 minutes left of their time, they construct this tower, and then at the very last moment they put the marshmallow on top, and inevitably the tower falls. The kindergartners, on the other hand, tend to build, it breaks, they build again, it breaks, they build again, it breaks, and each time they're making better improvements. And what's interesting about that is because they make better improvements, they're more efficient and they're more effective. Their towers are taller, their towers are more sturdy, and of course they hold marshmallow. It's the same thought process with building the website. Okay, by choosing experimentation and testing, you can fail faster, you can build better, more usable, more efficient, and more effective websites, which in the end makes our analytics even better. How do we do that? We use analytics data in order to inform our decisions. The third thing, and if any of you are from the sciences, hang in there with me, but you really need to value qualitative data in web analytics, and I would even argue in many areas of marketing, public relations, communications, business competitive. Qualitative data does have something to say. Voice of the customer is so important. Okay, so through surveys and lab usability testing, remote usability testing, that's when you put things out there all over the country or all over the world, and you're testing web, or you're testing ads, you're testing copy. Card sorts, which we'll talk about, and lots of other ways. You get direct feedback from your customers. We sit around and we build these websites with the customer in mind, and some of us go as far as to make cutouts of the customers and name these cutouts and give them fake lifestyles, because we want to make sure that we have the customer's best interest in mind. But so many of us, so few of us, go out and actually ask the customer, the live breathing humans. We just assume and we make assumptions. You need to value this qualitative data, and you have lots and lots of it at your disposal, so access it. And so what our goal is to marry this whole what to the why, right? What's happening, and asking the why is it happening. So this is measuring or merging this clickstream data with this and outcomes with this whole qualitative piece and the usability. And in the middle is this experimentation and testing to really dig down into the whys and the whats.